So let me explain to you the backstory of this film. An evil average American guy named Jud Travers had a dog named Shiloh. The dog decided to ditch him after yet another beating, and our great hero Marty Preston took in a runaway for the dog to stay at the kid's house. He had to work 24 hours for his former owner, feed the dogs all kind of garbage, and do a bunch of other stupid stuff. Well, the guy wasn't happy with that, so he wanted his dog back. One day, Marty was walking with his new dog right in the middle of the road. A kid who's supposedly grown and smart, walking not along the edge but right in the middle of the road, where you can't see around the corner cars that at full speed could instantly run him over. The guy was sipping beer while driving, was in a state of euphoria, so he didn't notice the kid, who barely managed to jump out of the way in time. Well, if everything had happened differently, the film would have ended before it even started. In the evening, during a quiet family dinner, the kid told his parents that Jud almost hit him with the car, but for some reason didn't mention how he heard a car flying up from behind at full speed and didn't get off the road, but kept walking down the middle like a fool. For some reason, I didn't see any condemnation or fear in the faces of the father and mother about their son's life. They simply started making excuses for the guy who drinks and drives, like his dog ran away to us. That's why he's angry. After the evening talk, Dad still decided to go to this asshole who had almost run over his son, probably to beat his stupid face in.
Holy shit.
Well, it turned out to be completely different. He pulled out an empty beer can that Jud had left on a forest plot when he was illegally hunting, and then like a coward started saying that this is wrong. You shouldn't do that. The drunk didn't give a damn what this useless clown was telling him. Finally, the boy's dad had a testosterone surge from his expired balls, and almost like a real man explained to Jud that if he comes near his property or his kids again, he'll call the police. But he couldn't do this right away, right after the son told him he'd almost been hit by a car. When the real man got home, his family thought we finally won, but he said the kids shouldn't go walking in their forest, on their territory, because a drunk neighbor with a hunting rifle might accidentally shoot them.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
The next day, the kid decided to take a walk with his dog, and again, like an idiot, was walking right down the middle of the road. Jud told the frightened kid, "Come here, I'll show you something." The guy showed him a scratch on his pickup, asking the kid who in his opinion could have done it, not realizing that he himself, while drunk, had hit several trees by the roadside. The kid could have reported to police himself about the drunk neighbor harassing him, instead of acting like a girl. The time came to carry out their plan to spy on the crazy neighbor, since the kids had nothing else to do besides becoming young voyeurs. They ended up behind a tree not far from the sitting drunk, who was shooting at squirrels with his hunting shotgun. The kids must have had sawdust instead of brains in their heads, because a normal person, seeing a drunk man with a weapon, would have run away, but they kept watching him violate hunting rules. Marty couldn't hold back and shouted, "Ha! Gay!" The drunk man, staggering, wanted to find a kid he recognized by his voice. The kids, like real ninjas, sat behind the tree without showing themselves, and this was again one of those cases where you'd get buckshot in any part of your body if the drunk thought he saw some movement. This time everything turned out fine, because our film is a family one, without any bloody scenes or bad plot twists. Jud went back to his house cursing everyone and everything under his breath, while the kids at that moment managed to get away unharmed.
Nah.
In the morning, Mom asked them,
You two must have been up all night.
of course they hadn't slept. How can you sleep after you've illegally trespassed onto someone else's territory, and on top of that nearly gotten buckshot in your butt? When David went home, Marty decided to go for a walk, and this time he didn't want to take the dog with him. The stars must have aligned this way, or maybe the director arranged it, so that Marty ran into Jud on the road, with a stupid smirk on his face. Probably because his chocolate-colored eye had narrowed to the size of a needle, he decided to tell the truth, how he and his buddy came up with the idea of playing spies in order to follow him. What's going on in this kid's head? How can you confess to almost a crime, having entered someone else's territory and spied on people? The guy, of course, started getting his ass on fire from such a heartfelt confession. Anyone in his place, Marty decided it was time to clear out, or he might get hit on his brainless head with something heavy. The next day, at yet another family breakfast, they were rejoicing and having fun about the fact that Grandma had caught pneumonia since she'd been picking peas in a cold pouring rain. Suddenly, a pickup truck pulled up to the house with Jud sitting in it. I'm not even surprised that he came to them after the kid had told about his adventures near his house. Jud had a new problem. Nobody saw whether his mailbox had actually fallen or whether he had simply come to accuse the kid of something he hadn't actually done. Dad, of course, would have answered this devil like a real man, throwing him off the porch. But instead, taking the pose of sad little lamb, he started making excuses for the kid. It came out as if Marty were the scariest hooligan in town, knocking down mailboxes and scratching his neighbors' cars.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
After the angry guy left, Dad decided to have a serious talk with his son. That's when the whole truth came out about how they'd been wandering around on someone else's territory and indecently watching people. Dad reminded his clueless son, who just couldn't get it into his head, that this is an old, heavy-drinking, armed man who could stuff him full of buckshot, mistaking him for some kind of animal. In the morning, Marty decided to play hide and seek with his younger sisters. I really don't understand how you can live like that, with no fences at all near the forest, since any feeble-minded idiot could walk in and harm anyone. Finally, the first victim was caught before she could touch the winning wheel. Then it was time to look for the second sister, and of course, everyone's beloved dog. For a couple of minutes, they wandered from corner to corner, trying to find the missing one in different parts of the so-called yard. Shiloh finally came back from his ambush, and then, drawn by the shouting, the parents came out of the house. Suddenly, shots rang out in the forest, not far from a house. The parents ran off in different directions, and the kid, instead of blaming himself, started blaming the dog, as if it were Shiloh's fault for not going with the sister. When Dad got back, he finally decided to call the sheriff and ask for help. The little dog realized he had to act himself. He led Marty to the shed standing on their property, where the shovels were kept. It turned out the little one had simply fallen asleep, and she wasn't even woken up by the shots or by the voices calling for her. Once back home, they peacefully went about their business, but for some reason at this time, the middle sister herself was near the forest, unsupervised, picking apples, and of course out of nowhere some vicious dogs appeared to create a bit of tension. First of all, when Mom ran out of the house, she didn't immediately run toward the dogs grabbing something heavy, but stood and watched as they started biting her daughter, and only after that did she start acting. I'm certainly no doctor with a medical degree, but why didn't they take her to the hospital to be seen by a specialist, while Mom just decided to treat the wound herself, figuring there was probably nothing serious there? Actually, a dog's mouth contains a lot of bacteria, so the risk of infection is quite high. But this didn't worry the parents much. And then that very same drunk dog owner showed up, as if drawn by the light, who, like in Quentin Tarantino movies, all heavy and serious like a Terminator, walked up to them and asked, instead of punching this weirdo in the face of the fact that his dogs had run onto someone else's territory and bitten a child. Dad started making excuses, as if his family had nothing to do with it. Looks like the drunk himself let his dogs loose while drunk, and to cover this up decided to blame the injured party. After that, he wanted to get his small dog back, which had hidden under the stairs. He grabbed someone else's broom, and Marty started getting in his way. So tell me, the drunk's dog bit the daughter, and the mother says she's not going to press any charges, in order to knock a big pile of money off him. They act in general like super friendly people, who can be kicked or whatever, and they'll turn the other cheek. What was there left for them to do after that? They needed to eat well with sugary, fun foods, from which it became warm and pleasant inside. One evening, when everyone was asleep, the doggy ran out into the street and spotted a neighbor's cat. He chased after it, hoping to bite off a piece of its tail for supper. By a strange coincidence, he ran out onto the road right in front of his former owner's car. He decided to call the dog over to him, but the dog had enough sense to just plainly bail the hell out of there, not waiting to be grabbed. Suddenly, there was a strange noise that woke up the kid, went outside, and after him went Mom too. Not far from the house, they heard Shiloh barking, which clearly hinted at suspicious activity. Well, of course, Mom let her son go off alone with a flashlight in the middle of the night to who knows where, not afraid of that incident with the dogs that had almost eaten her daughter. Well, what can you say? What a super mom. Finally, he saw his beloved drunk neighbor's pickup lying overturned. Instead of immediately running for help, calling the police and an ambulance, he, like a superhero, tried to help the old man, who was clearly pinned by the car's structure. All he managed to do was pull out a stick lying next to the driver, and only after that did he head home. In the end, the man was taken away by ambulance, and the kid stood there, either confused or happy that finally this idiot wouldn't be around them anymore. Jud came back from the hospital after 5 weeks, One day, Marty and his father again decided to try talking to the unloved neighbor. This time, he didn't tell them to go to hell, but even invited them into the house to chat a little. It seems to me that once he fully recovers, he'll start drinking again and walking around the area shooting squirrels. History will repeat itself, and all this business with kindness in real life doesn't actually exist on such a large scale as in this film.